Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast, learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 36, and I'll be talking to Tony Alexander, who has more than 15 years in the corporate world in human resources, leadership, and has also served in the military. Tony received nominations by Prince Charles in 2015 as the Global Ambassador for Business in the Community Global Citizen. Also named Black Enterprise Men of Distinction, 40 Under 40 in 2016, along with many more impressive accolades. While Tony excels in the corporate environment, he also leads and mentors over 500 mentees worldwide, changing lives. He believes in youth with big dreams and empowers them to bring them into reality. So hello and welcome to Tony. How are you, Tony?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing really well. I'm curious to have you on this podcast and to delve into the space of what is it, the craft and the mastery that you have honed that supports others through their life and their day-to-day challenges that show up. So would you like to share a little bit about what that looks like?
Oh, wow. Well, definitely that looks like a journey, self-exploration for me. And just the fact that I like to help others and to back just a second. What I do, they say if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I'm gonna say I did work some days in my life until I decided, to kind of jump out on my own. But what it looks like is developing the people and the leaders that are around me and doing it with authenticity and transparency and just making sure that they can show up as the best person they can for the people they need to show up for.
Beautiful. And how do you do that?
In life, everything starts and it's based on relationships. So it definitely starts with getting to know the person that I'm working with first. A lot of times you've probably heard in the workforce, maybe someone can't be rehabilitated or they're not willing to change. So I go deeper into that with people just in general, find out the things that make them tick. What are their ups? What are their downs? And most importantly, to learn their life story because everyone has a story to tell. And if we are open to listening to those stories and seeing how we can help, then it definitely makes us a stronger society in general. Another thing I do, in which many people find it remarkable, but I do have what I call a mentoring group, which is about roughly right now about 500 mentees across the world. And what I do is I duplicate the repetitions of the things that I do within my mentee groups. And then I help to create them as mentors for the next generation. So I guess you would say it's a way of paying it forward. But at the end of the day, honestly, I am just me. And apparently, being me is good enough. And I'm okay with that.
I love that. I love that you are so strong and so content is what I'm feeling from you, content in who you are. And that in itself translates out to all your other mentors, all the 500 of them. And then that multiplying across the world, that's quite a feat. That's quite an accomplishment. Well done, Tony.
Thank you.
What do you believe about yourself? And do you feel it defines who you are to be able to deliver and show up for other people and for yourself?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I do believe that we can be shaped by the things that happens to us in our lives, And that is definitely for me. I'm a first generation college grad. I hold a degree, a master's degree in HR, as well as a JD in law, and a couple of DE and I certificates. But all of those titles, they don't mean anything to me, because it's more about the person that you're trying to help. And what I've learned is people, what tells me that makes me this person that I am is the ability, one, is to network, right? And two is to be authentic and transparent. And three is to give more than you ask for in return. And being able to do this with my mentee group across the world is just phenomenal when I see that they are paying it forward. And I can't say, and no one can say that, I've reached this level of success by myself. There's nothing in this world that you can do by yourself without someone's help. And I've been very fortunate to reach out and get mentors, business coaches, advisors, and friends. And with this, it's helped me mold, I guess, this perfect crystal ball of success is what I like to call it. So definitely with the help of some very strong mentors. And one other thing I would like to add, and being vulnerable. I think that's very important too, because if you're going to be the authentic person, and one thing I tell people about, for example, entrepreneurship, that you have to be vulnerable. You have to listen to the attaboys just as well as that's not going to work. And I take that, in not only business, I take that same approach in life as well. So, if I'm not doing something, call me out on it, and I'm going to do my best to fix it. I think there's nothing more depressing than an unaware leader in a leadership role. So that's kind of in a spectrum.
Yeah, that's a lot of insight, a lot of qualities that you've recognized in order to hone them for your greater gift, to fit them into that piece of that crystal ball that you talked about, which is a beautiful analogy. I like that. Do you believe that this is your calling?
Absolutely, I do. But I can tell you at a point in time, I really didn't, because it took someone from the outside tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, you're really good at this, right?" And I'm like, "Good at what? You're really good at what you do. What do you mean? Define what I do." And it took me some time to sit down and say, wow, one of my mentors told me that I'm very good at the art of storytelling, and many people are not. So being able to storytell first became my superpower, as I like to call it.
Right.
And with that, I began to notice and just began to become present in the amount of people who would come to me for advice, the amount of people who would actually take my advice, and the amount of people that would refer me, and this is before, even me starting out a journey as an entrepreneur. But the reason I know that it's my calling, because every time I help someone and I can lay at bed at night and smile and says, okay, they achieved not only because of me, but because of the work that they put in themselves. And I see the fruit all over the social media websites where, my mentees are starting to take on their own identities. And it's a wonderful thing. That's the ultimate goal, because I don't want to duplicate another me. I want a better version of me that's out there. And the reason, again, and it works, it's the success factor, because just looking at some of my mentees and the level of success that they achieve in not only their personal life, but in their business life, tells me that I'm doing something right and I'll continue to do it.
Beautiful. It's really interesting how we have these innate skills within ourselves, but we don't recognize and realize that they're a true gift in who we are. And that is how we should be showing up to the world, presenting ourselves and engaging, be it in the world of business or in your personal life, but just be that. That's so difficult. What was it that put you on that back and forth piece of, really, what am I doing? What do you see in me? Why I'm just being me? Like, having somebody highlight it, what were you doing before? What were you seeking?
It was honestly difficult to grasp, hey, it's me with this talent. And I think honestly, before that, the issue was I wasn't seeking anything. I didn't have a true north compass. And that's why it's so important to have mentors and coaches and friends that are going to see what you can't see. And so, I struggle with, hey, for a very long time of being the person that people go to, right? And I kept saying, well, I don't want to give you bad advice. And I think it had something to do with me inner. I had to build my self-confidence. And so after building my self-confidence and people taking my advice, I really believe to begin to believe in myself. And I want to say that's where it starts because people can, paint you up or set you up really well, but they don't prepare you for the fall that could come either. But the back and forth I struggled with it honestly for I would say almost 2 years, and that was 2 years too long. Once I got into the craft and I began to see people shoot off in their personal lives, and I began to see them take off in their business lives, and just even around my family and friends, I showed up a lot different and a lot more confident. So it was a difficult journey. The issue for some of the people on the outside looking in, I was doing all of this and I wasn't doing it for a paycheck. So they couldn't believe, like, oh my gosh, you have all of these mentees and you do this and you do that and you don't charge and you don't do this. And I'm like, everything is not about money. And when I can go to bed at night and sleep in peace and knowing that I've helped impact the world, because it takes a lot to change the world, it's the impact that matters. And when people began to send me emails and call me and tell me of all of these things that they achieved that they never thought would be true if I didn't come into their life, it validated me and it gave me that self confidence to move forward.
What a beautiful gift. A beautiful gift, not only that you're giving to others by really stepping into who you are, but a gift to yourself to do that and to be open and receptive and give it from a very authentic, vulnerable place. Not a lot of people go there, and not a lot of people are willing to delve into that space. But in the same token, I want to say your 2 year struggle is like a little blip, because I know people who have struggled with self confidence for much longer than 2 years. So I think your 2 years is pebble in the ocean. It's really not very much. Whereas I really do believe people can spend lifetimes challenged with that.
And that is true because I find that in my mentees a lot as well. And that it helps me because I tell them that same story, that it took me almost 2 years and they look at me and they're like, they can't believe it. They're like, you're a natural at this. And I'm not, I haven't always been one. And
Mhm.
so, you hear the old adage, meet people where they are.
Mhm.
I agree with that. Meet people where they are, but take them where they want to go as well.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yes. People are brought to you who have the openness, the willingness, and the drive to do that, and are ready to take it to the next step, because we've all seen it, especially in the space of change and self discovery and motivation and awareness, that there are many individuals who are just not ready to go there yet. They've read the book, it's sitting on the coffee table. The integration hasn't happened yet to force the action. So I just find it a real opportunity to have those individuals who are very green, if you will, and are very open and just ready to charge out of the gate, so to speak, and you give them the skills and the tools and they're gone, which is a gift.
It truly is, and I can't say that 100% of the relationships always end or turn out the way that I would envision that they would. But I can tell you in those relationships, 3 to 4 years later down the line, those people have come back to me and say, now I see it. Now I know what you were trying to do. And I'm ready. I'm here. We just the first go around wasn't the right time. So you're so right about the openness and willingness because I can't work harder on you than you work on yourself. And that is so important.
100%. I totally believe that. An age old saying, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's the same analogy, right? There's only so much we can do. The motivation, the inspiration, the seeing and doing what you are encouraging them to be and do is only one step of the game.
That's it. Absolutely. And and that's one of the things that I learned. It's okay for someone to motivate you, but you have to self-motivate yourself as well. So that's the critical piece, that openness and self-motivation. I can't come and set your alarm clock for 6 a.m. every day. I can't tell you to make sure that you get to a meeting on time. It takes
Right.
that self-discipline, self-awareness, and the ability to accept feedback and the openness. So
Absolutely. What was the one experience that you had, be it as a mentee early in your journey or a little bit later, a little bit more recently? One experience that you had that perhaps gave you the affirmation and the confidence of, this is what I'm here to do. That's right.
I would say the one thing that did was I actually had a mentee who had the love and the dream for basketball. And he wanted to go into the NBA or he wanted to go into the G League. And when I met this mentee, he there was a lot of work that needed to be done, outward and inward. And there was a lot of things in his life. He faced a lot of adversities, which a lot of us do, but his situation was just a little bit more difficult. And I can remember the first thing I gave him a couple of books that I told him to read, and he said to me, "Well, what does this have to do with basketball?" And I said, "Nothing. It's about I want you to read these books because there's a message that I want you to see." And then we came up with a 60-day calendar on what we were going to do in order to get him to be ready to play basketball. And he couldn't see it. I was assigning him writing assignments and, go to this museum or do X, Y, and Z. And on the back end of it, I had contacts with the G League in which I started reaching out, knowing what he wanted to do. And along the way, this his mom came to me and she actually said, you know, my son hadn't read a book in 5 years. What did you do? And I'm like, I asked him to read it. And she just thanked me and she goes, it just means so much because to me I felt like he was wasting his life away. And I said, well, what do you mean wasting it away? He's stuck on this basketball dream and career. And, now he seems to be more open to the fact that it possibly cannot happen. And I said, well, he's open to the fact that it cannot happen, but I'm also encouraging him that it possibly could happen. Have you ever told him that you believe in his dreams? And this is what is so powerful because the mom and the son got a lesson out of this. And she said, "No, I really didn't. As a child, I was a single mother doing X, Y, and Z." And I said, "Well, you have to put all of that behind you, and it's time to focus on him." And so she and I would have progress calls. And mind you, this young man is 21 years old.
Wow.
So and the lifespan of an NBA player is that 21 to 28. After 28, you getting into the NBA is little to nothing. So I then assigned him a set of books to read, and these were actually called "How to Get the Basketball Blueprint." And so by then I knew he was fluent in understanding and comprehending and retaining what's happening. So I started to tell him to then enact what he could inside of the books. And each week his mom is calling me more. She says, "Oh my gosh, you can't believe he did X, Y, and Z." And I didn't even have to ask him to. Uh, long story short, about 1 month ago, he sent me an email, and he couldn't believe it because we had been doing what we call basketball camps and combines. So I had him kind of traveling all across the US doing tryouts. And he says, "This person says they're an agent and they want to sign me to the EuroLeague." And I said, "Okay, I'm not understanding what's the problem." And he says,
Right.
"No, I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe this." And I said, "Well, send it over to me. Let me make sure it's legit and everything and do some
Mhm.
calls on it." Called and everything was legit and ready to go. And so he he cried. I went
Mhm.
by to see him when he did his signing. He cried. And his mother looked at me and said, he hadn't cried since he was the age of 10.
Mm.
And right in that moment, I knew I was living in my purpose. I was walking in the power of now. And that's a story, like I said, and that's not something from years ago. This has just recently happened, and it just floors me just to know, he's going to be living his dream playing basketball in Europe with a semi-pro team.
Beautiful. How powerful is that, Tony? Oh my goodness.
It's powerful, you know. It's powerful.
So, what happened to you in that state? So, yes, it gave you the confirmation of this is what I'm here to do, this is my purpose, I get it. But what was your internal dialogue like?
Well, first of all, honestly, my internal dialogue started off. I don't know how in the world I'm going to find an agent for this guy in basketball because that's outside my arena. So,
Right.
what I had to do first was then step out of my own comfort zone because I'm telling everyone else to step out your comfort zone. But the internal dialogue was more around this is something new. How bad does he want it? How bad do you want it? Right. And the internal dialogue honestly gave me more insights into why he did some of the things that he did. And the reason I got that because I ended up having a relationship with the mother and kind of understanding, the adversities that he had faced in life and the adversities that she was still currently facing. But
Right.
I had to make sure as well that I didn't take those problems and try to sort through them myself. It was up
Mm.
for them to sort through.
Yeah.
But in it, I just felt like I was growing stronger because I'm like, now I'm networking and I'm connecting with more people. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is really going to work. And we're starting to get leads. And, just getting that email and the process from there, I was elated. I think I was happier than he was, and I have to admit there were a few tears on my side as well.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it was overwhelming. It was in a good way. It was a fulfillment. It was, not about, hey, I got into the G League or I got this. It was, hey, I put a goal on a piece of paper and I achieved it. I
Mm-hmm.
looked at this goal every moment. You had me write a vision for my life, and it's coming to fruition every single day. And
Mm-hmm.
he texts every day, and as men, there are things that we don't usually say, but it feels good to me when my mentees say, "I love you,"
Mm.
and it just goes a long way. Like wow. So
Wow.
I call myself a papa of about 500 people. So
I was just going to say that this is what it feels like, an extension of parenthood, to these kids who may have not had other people in their lives, maybe even well intentioned, who have that faith beyond the faith that they have in themselves.
absolutely, absolutely.
Just like you had experienced yourself. So somebody had that deeper awareness and deeper element of faith in you so you can do what you're doing. That's more around your mentee program and they pass it forward. But in an essence, it began from you.
And this is true. And again, that's having people to pour into me with no expectations of anything but success in return. And that was very powerful for me because again, I grew up in a very modest neighborhood, might you say. At the time, the only thing that I really knew that going into life, I could either be was a doctor or work on a farm because those are the only two people I saw in my neighborhood.
Mm.
But it was a lot of adults along the way who would tap me on the shoulder to make sure that I was walking the straight and narrow. But a lot of the end, I can't discount, my 10-year military service as well. So that
Mm.
taught me self-discipline there. But the journey, and like I tell everyone, the journey, it's not going to always be pretty. You have to accept the struggle as a part of your story. And once you accept the struggle, then you're going to find those gems and nuggets along the way that's going to make you, understand, why you have to endure some of the hardships that you do.
Absolutely. And also to allow that certain people come into our lives for a reason. There's a saying that I've often used, and I actually live by it, of people coming to your lives either for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. It's so pivotal for us to allow somebody like Tony to come into our lives and say, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? What is your bigger dream? But I think the real nugget here is the extension of your gift.
Yeah,
The extension of your gift is not only to the children, but it's also to the parents.
right. It is. And I get a lot of thank yous from the parents and those things. And it's a good feeling that they recognize that, a lot of times their child was a lot of work. So
Yes,
but they authentically reach out and thank me even during the process or even after the process because once we achieve the goal, my relationship with the mentees isn't done. For the most part, it's a lifelong thing. Some do come to an end, but for the most part, it's a forever friend thing.
beautiful. And I'm imagining, or I'm hoping, it's the same with the parents because you've also taken the parents on a journey of their own discovery, their own faith, their own dreams of what that looks like as a mother or a father or an aunt or an uncle, whoever that looks like.
Right? It's extraordinary to watch, and it's like I said, it's a good feeling, and it lets me know that I'm living in my purpose.
Beautiful. I love that. So you've got this mentorship program going, and you're supporting hundreds of children and adults around the world with a pay it forward strategy. And I see you're very busy on LinkedIn with lots of other opportunities and presentations, and you're involved with. So, what's next for Tony? What's the bigger dream you have for you?
The biggest dream that I have, and it still is in service to others, but I definitely want to look at a better way to to put myself out there to be in a position to help more people. So, being that I'm only one person, of course, my time is limited. But for me, is getting a larger platform so people that who are in need of my services can. Because if I can, if I started out with 300 some years ago and grew into 500, and that was just by word of mouth of the people inside the group. But what's next for me is getting more visibility so that I can expose myself to other people, parents, children, that need, and a little guidance. And for that. And one of the other pieces is, and I'm going to take from a mentee, I do plan to start writing a book. So a book about my life that is in the works. And those are the two things that are next for me.
They're quite big things. That's a lot of work. A lot of work writing a book and expanding your capacity to serve other people. All very exciting pieces for sure.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Tony, it's been such a pleasure talking to you and learning about your gift and your mastery of having the dream for others and having it in a much more deeper aspect that will empower them in their life and shape their life. So thank you so much for sharing that element of wisdom and your gift to others.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.